Hello, everyone. I just wanted to go over a couple things for week 3. You can click and find your agenda is going to be set up not only in announcements, I try to always put it under module. So under a module, weekly overview, I just copy and pasted what was in here, put it in announcements. Just to go over it, I want to show you what you're expected for the next 2 classes. Class 5 goes from Monday to Wednesday, and the assignment due on Wednesday is, if I get it to go. Again, go over the appendix. There's going to be more math, and then I want you to read over chapter 2. There are 2 Cengage quizzes, and there's a mini quiz. People are tending to do really well in these mini quizzes. I'm starting to debate whether or not I was going to make the mini quizzes. I might make those the quiz grades and these the homeworks. But continue to do the Cengage quizzes and then look at the mini quizzes. The way I'm going to help you with the mini quizzes is I always try to give you the notes. The highlighted notes are this little section here that I make. Sometimes it'll be the entire section, but if you click on this, it'll bring up this document here. I tried a new method of doing it where I added a Google Doc if this didn't work, but it should work for everyone. So let me go over this. First vocab cluster, we have charts, word problems, inequalities. If we were working together in person, I'd spend a lot more time on word problems, but we're not going to. Systems of equations, that's just 2 equations that when they graph, they meet at a coordinate. They would give you something that looks like this. I'm going to use page 71 out of the book. See where they intersect. I was going to spend time with the creation of those lines, but instead I just want to spend time on how those lines are created. So let's go through. We have another cluster of words, read through all these terms, and then the ones I'm really specific, I give you the definitions for. So law of comparative advantage. The PPF, I'm going to refer to that a lot. Absolute advantage, comparative advantage. Terms of trade, these are things I'm going to put in the quizzes and definitely in the tests. If you're paying attention, you're watching this video. The PPF, I'm going to spend a lot of time on this quiz going over. So if you watch these graphs down below, this is going to be on the quiz. I want to know what the x-axis down here is the Corvettes. The y-axis is cell phones. So if you go back, these are talking about all the different graphs you have. You have consumer. Capital goods are usually on the bottom. Consumer goods are on the y-axis, x-axis. Then this is a trade-off. This is called the production possibility frontier curve is right here. So this is what the quiz is going to be mostly on. So what it means is when you're making something, there's a trade-off for another product. You're spending more time on it. So the cost of a Corvette is 133 cell phones. This is where the cost of each right here. So cost of each Corvette is 200 cell phones. You find this by finding the slope, the difference between the y's of A and B and the x's of A and B. So just to look again, this is a coordinate. The coordinate is 600, 2,000, 220,000. This is 700, 200,000. Those coordinates, you find the slope. You find that 200 number. And then these are lots of different changes coming up in graph 4. So go from here to here. When you go up, if you go up on the y coordinate on this side, you're having usually technology change, which makes you do it easier or produce things cheaper. So this would be like antennas are cheaper. To build an antenna into a cell phone got cheaper and easier. You can make more, and that will change the y up. These are the 4 different types of changes. When they both change together, the curve goes out. When they the ability for resources is greater, uncertainty, the rules of the game change or the laws change, you're going to have something go in. This one reminds me maybe a little bit of what we're going through right now. This one is what I just showed you, and this is the last one here. This is when the capital goods ends up having the technology or a big advancement or something could happen that changes their fortunes, ability to make them. So let me go over these are on the test. A couple other things I want to mention. The discussion boards are on the test. So we have the first discussion board was about incentives. rational self-interest, intrinsic motivation. And then discussion 2 was about perfect condition. We're all talking about perfect conditions for trade because of the fallacy of composition. Those are the things, intrinsic motivation, you don't know everyone's intrinsic motivation, and then the fallacy of composition. Those are things that are human nature and they're natural and they're going to change the way these normal graphs will work. So eventually you're going to build up to the normal everyday graphs of supply and demand. These supply and demand graphs are great and they're excellent and they work. And it's like one of the most important things to understand about economics. Everybody talks about it, but it's all based on perfect conditions or nothing changing in the short term, things that you can base so you can find your surplus. You know everyone's intrinsic motivations aren't going to totally affect it. You know that the fallacy of composition isn't going to affect it. Most of these graphs are not perfect. They change all the time. But in this book, and when we learn economics, the basics, typically, the first thing you learn is what happens when it's just steady, perfect competition. And that is why we're doing these different topics. This is what it's gearing you up for, and this is what it's leading you towards. Good luck on the test. Email me if you have any questions. This is Professor Grasser, signing off.